Hey, this is Chris from Stockspot. Now, I recently read an interesting study and research piece by JB Weir that looked at what the average inheritance is in Australia, and their study found that it's just ticked over $700,000 and that the average person receives that inheritance around the age of 55. And it got me thinking, is that really the best way to pass on generational wealth, to receive that big amount at a single point in your life? Or could we really think about intergenerational wealth in a different way and pass on money in a way that's more helpful to the next generation? Now, $700,000, at that point in your life, I think the challenge is that by the time you're 55, you've already covered a lot of your big household expenditures and expenses. You've covered your kids' school fees, or a large part of them by that age. Most people have. Their mortgage has been, basically covered a lot of, or it's under control at least. And so that 700,000 doesn't really have the utility it would earlier in someone's life, and it doesn't give you the flexibility that it could earlier in your life. But what if instead of passing on that $700,000, the generation before us instead just put a smaller amount into an investing account when someone was born? And so I did the maths and found that if you simply put $15,000 in an account when someone was born, by the time they were 55, which is that point where we're usually inheriting 700,000, they'd have about $1 million. And that's without any additional top-ups. That's not with any more money being put in. It's simply with that initial deposit of $15,000, compounding for 55 years at an 8% per annum return. I think the benefit of this sort of model for people is actually it gives that next generation the flexibility to use that money when it's most helpful in their life. That could be to buy their first property, to go and help pay for school fees for their kids. And so they can really pull that money out at a time that's more useful. But also for the older generation, I think it puts a lot less pressure on them to be frugal over their last 10 or 20 years, wanting to pass on money to the next generation, because they can feel comfortable that they've already done it. And so they can live their best life, go on those holidays they've wanted, buy the boat that they've dreamed of, rather than really save up to be able to pass on money after they die. And so I think it's a good time to be really having that conversation and discussing, how do we look at retirement, and also how do we look at passing on money to the next generation. I think these sort of discussions is also what's leading to an increase in what we're seeing as a lot of parents setting up accounts for their kids and a lot of grandparents setting up accounts for their kids. We've got over 5,000 of these Stockspot accounts now where parents and grandparents are, putting aside more money for kids when they're younger, with the view that money is going to be more helpful to help them buy a home or a car, or go towards their education later in life. And I see the future of retirement and the future of wealth generation or generational wealth transfer really moving in this direction, where money is passed on earlier rather than waiting really late in life. And if you do want to set up a Stockspot Investing for Kids account, the process is really simple. You come to our website and you can set up the account in about 5 or 10 minutes. Plus, we're really keen to help kids start investing earlier, which is why we don't charge fees on the first $10,000 of kids' accounts, to help them get an early start and get them into markets as quickly as possible without seeing their balances eroded to fees. So come to our website, get a portfolio recommendation, and give it a try if it's something you're considering.